George Ezra, come on. That's what I'm talking about. Man, he's playing those couple songs, just kind of takes you away. You're chilling out on a Wednesday, the wine's kicking in. You're like, I could do this all day long, right? And George, thanks for coming out this afternoon and just hanging with us.
Don't be silly. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, a lot of fun. You earlier were kind of talking about kind of the roots of some of the songs.
Yes.
His new record, Staying at Tamara's, is out now. There's a lot of great backstories on how this record came to be, and I kind of want to talk about how the title came about.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if this is what I heard. I don't know if this is true, but we're having kind of a creative block, which happens, right? It's okay to talk about.
Yeah. No.
And you said, I just want to get away from it all. I want to submerge myself in kind of a different environment, and like you Airbnb'd like someone's house in Barcelona and just like started living with these strangers or something. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. It kind of. I knew, for the first record, I travelled around Europe on this train, and this train ticket that allows you to go anywhere for the month. And in all honesty, I didn't think anyone was going to hear my first album, and not in a bad way. I just, it did better than I thought it was going to do. And so I knew in myself that I benefit from being on the move and seeing new things. But yeah, it was heightened when I got off tour, because we toured for about 2 years. And it's a funny existence. You're in your own little world, in a good way again. But I kind of struggled coming off that and not having stuff to do, commitments and a reason and stuff like that. So yeah, I took myself over to Barcelona, and everyone thought that was a great idea until I said to them, and I found a stranger on the internet and I'm going to go and live with them. And my manager was like, are you sure you want me to book this, man? And I was like, yeah. And it wasn't until I landed, I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
So walk me through this. You land in Barcelona, you walk up to this person's house who you don't know, and you're renting a room for a month, and you're going to live in the city. And you knock on the door, and this person's like, okay, so you're George. Like, no idea who you are. I mean, did you take out your guitar and you're like, Budapest? Like, recognize me? Like,
no, so my host was this girl called Tamara, and she kind of showed me up. I had my guitar. On these trips, like, I'll take a guitar, I'll take notebooks, but I don't really write the songs on the trips. I just take a note of everything that I'm doing. And there was one night where me and Tamara stayed up and we were drinking a bit of wine and sharing some music, and she had Spotify open and she was like, oh, you've got a guitar, do you play? And I was like, meh. And you're faced with an option then. Do you lie and, keep the master? And I was like, no, okay. So I was like, if you type in George Ezra, which I had to help her spell, she really didn't have a clue. At all. And I've got a song on the first album called Barcelona as well. I mean, Budapest came up and that's had 300 million plays around there. And I don't say that, I don't walk around telling people that, but it helps the story because obviously her face then was like...
Can I get your autograph?
Yeah, what? Yeah. So I think and then there was, halfway through the trip, I realised how important the trip was for the record. So I realised... to call the record Staying at Tamara's made sense. I hadn't written it yet, but I knew that would be a good title. So then I had to wait a while once I got home to ring her up and say, would this freak you out? Is this okay? And she said, yeah.
That's awesome. Isn't that a great story? I just love it. And I love the fact that, George has it dialed in on a second record that I get a month vacation wherever I go to be creative. Like, that's genius,
I know.
dude.
The thing is, I was explaining to people, like, so I go away to write the album. One of my friends was just like, I'm calling bullshit, man. You're going away. You're going to Barcelona for a month.
Yeah. So you did Barcelona, and then you did something even more interesting. And like I said, I may be wrong, but I heard that you went to like this remote cabin for about 2 weeks that had no electricity. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the room with someone who's not been on their cell phone for 2 weeks in the last year. That's like you went to the moon, basically.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Well, this is it. I kind of, I'm somebody that really relies on human contact, and I'm not very good at entertaining myself. So it's good for me to take myself out of that. And I'm learning to enjoy time by myself. And so I found this cabin in Norfolk, and that's kind of just the countryside of the UK. And it was sold to me again with no electricity, and everyone thought it was a good idea until I told them, and there's no electricity. And this is the way my brain thinks that works. They were kind of going, they were listing everything that runs off electricity, and I was like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And they were going like, the fridge, for example. I was like, oh, yeah. So I booked it out for 10 days, and I rang the couple that own it, and I was like, I'd like to book the cabin for 10 days. And there was like a bit of a pause, and they said, we've only ever rented it out for 2 nights at a time to couples. And you're this like lad, is everything okay? It was just, I should point out as well, it was kind of, back home there's a saying, I don't know if it's here, but glamping. So you go camping, but and it was glamping in the sense that, you had to light the fire for hot water, but then that hot water poured into a roll-top bath. So they had done it really nicely. So I'd like kind of set my alarm for 5 a.m., light the fire, set it again for 8 a.m., and the shower was connected to the outside wall. So every morning I was just in this field. It was great. The only, there's a lot of candles involved, but I also took a head torch so that I could read in bed. So I went to this kind of like Trader Joe's place, and I was like, I need a head torch. And I've not got a callus on my hand, and they were kind of like, why? And I was like, well, I need to read in bed. So yeah.
Fantastic. And if you're unaware, George also does a podcast that I'm a big fan of. You just launched it, and we got to talk about it, man. Your last episode, you got to hang with Elton John.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy, and it's kind of, I don't get flappy very often. I don't get I'm normally quite calm about things, and I actually went round to Elton's house, and there was a point just before he came down to meet me in the lounge where I did kind of go, how's this happened? This is weird.
Yeah. He's being shy right now. He's not. During the podcast, Elton John is sitting there talking to Jordan. He's like, oh, we got to arrange a nice dinner, like Ed and Sam, and you can come over and we just hang out and talk all night, maybe for a weekend or whatever. And George, like, you hear this little pause. He's like, oh, that'd be cool. He plays it so cool. And, of course, he's talking about Ed Sheeran, Sam Smith, Elton John, and George Ezra having dinner and hanging out all weekend.
Well, come on, man, the etiquette. You can't go like, really?
You were just so cool about it. I'm like, dude, I know this guy. In his head, he's like, did he just invite me? Like, this is the first time I've ever been to his house. Now I'm sitting there talking to him, and now he just invited me back to have dinner with those two guys?
But the whole reason the podcast started was because I'm in a very fortunate position whereby I'm signed to a major record label. So that means when I'm left to it, I write and record music. And then when it's time to press go, there's this infrastructure, and there's all these people that work extremely hard to, for TV, radio, internet, marketing, and it's like there's a lot of conversations had to make everything work, which is brilliant. But I really wanted a project where it's on me. I wanted to experience what it was like to work on something where I get in touch with the guests. I went out and bought all the mics. I go and sit down. I now send them to somebody to edit them because I was useless. I was trying to do that as well. It got to a point where my girlfriend was going like, it's 3 a.m, mate. You're really not nailing this. So I had to hire somebody else in to help with that. And I just it's cheeky to ask for an hour of somebody's time, which is what I asked for. And Ed Sheeran was the first guest that we released, and again with that one I go round and we sit for an hour, and I think what you realise, because what the conversation is based on is what we both do, me and the guest, but more about them, of course. And it's just, if you're into music, it's fascinating just because of the guests that are
you got to listen to the one with Elton John. It's one of the standout ones, and it's just great because like Elton's like, okay, this is your single. Have you put out Don't Matter Now? Yeah, you should re-release that as a single. And this song's great. This one's good. The rest, whatever. Like he's just like dissecting this dude's. It's just like it's amazing.
But so the thing I wanted to talk to him about most is I'd heard rumors that the man has this folder and he knows every single release. And he listens to every single release. And I got a phone call on my first album from Elton John just to say he had heard the record, which is insane. And so I kind of knew firsthand that there was some truth in it, but I wanted to know exactly how it works. And he literally brought out, he was like, I don't touch the internet, so I get faxed, I think he said.
Yes.
Somebody faxes me through the list of a release every week. I highlight the ones I want to listen to. Then someone goes out and buys them physically, so I have them on vinyl or CD. And every Friday, I think he said it was, he listens to roughly 40 albums, 3 songs off each. Which is, that's just, in whatever profession, that kind of commitment is... That's why you're Elton John. It's kind of like, and what do you listen to, George? And I was like,
Radio?
Yeah.
I don't know. My own record? What?
Yeah, so it was very... And he's got the same these are like ring binder kind of, and he's got the same for books and for films, and he does it. So when he does talk about records, he talks about them very matter-of-factly because there's not one he hasn't heard. It's not like it's more than just opinion. It's like a really educated...
It's a great way to get to know George a little bit better, and also just kind of how the process of music works. I mean, it was amazing. I think my biggest takeaway was that Elton John's saying, like, you're kind of asking about songwriting process and this, and he's like, yeah, I don't try to write a song until I go in the studio.
Yeah, which is mad, because I've spent, like, the way I do it, so Paradise, the first song I played for you, that first melody came to me on the west coast of America, and I will pick up the guitar, so say that the part goes... like that, and my love. I have that verse bit, and it won't be, I'll play that once a week or so, and I won't push it, I'll just wait for the next section to come. So that could be 4 months, and it drives people mad, but that's just it. I enjoy that. Whereas Elton was like, I go to the studio, and I write the song, and we press record. And I was like, God. Yeah, very different. I should say, so it's called George, Ezra and Friends, if any of you are interested.
Yeah, make sure you check that out. And I know this feels like we're doing a podcast right now, and people want to see you play, but it's always fun to hang and talk music and see what's going on. But if you want to keep in touch with him, he's got a newsletter, he does a journal every week, probably one of the most accessible dudes in music, and so I really appreciate that. You make it really easy to be a fan.
Thank you, man. I think that the reason I started that was there's a comedian that I'm a big fan of back home, and he does every single day. He writes an A4 piece that's available on his website. And that's crazy, I think. But I was like, I wonder if I could do it weekly. So yeah, every week. And today's the day, actually. Thank you for reminding me. I sit down and it's for me more than anything. I just recap everything that's happened the week, and then it goes to your inbox.
Yeah. When George Ezra puts out his book, like in 20 years, it'll be so easy. He'll just be like, here you go, dude. Dig through that. Yeah. So let's hear some more songs. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right. Put it together for George Ezra.